Welcome back. In our previous sessions, we talked about the why of prompt engineering and the structural how. Now, we're going to zoom in on the single most important part of any prompt, the verb. We often focus on nouns, the features, the topics, the data. But the verb is the engine. It's the word that tells the AI what to actually do. In this session, we're going to explore how the strategic choice of a single verb can transform a flat, uninteresting prompt into a powerful tool for analysis, creativity, and collaboration. Think of it this way. The words you choose are like a steering wheel for the AI, and the verb is the most powerful part of that steering wheel. A carefully chosen verb doesn't just ask a question. It guides the entire thought process. It shapes the outcome, directing the AI toward your desired objective. If you ask the AI to list features, you'll get one thing. If you ask it to imagine features, you'll get something entirely different. Mastering verbs is how you move from being a passenger to being the driver. So, why dedicate an entire session to verbs? Because they are the difference between a prompt that sits there and a prompt that springs into action. Verbs trigger the specific cognitive response we're looking for. If you want the AI to analyze data, you need an analytical verb like evaluate or diagnose. If you want it to brainstorm, you need a creative verb like envision or ideate. This session will uncover how to strategically select verbs to turn your prompts into precise instruments for innovation, problem solving, and discovery. We're going to organize our journey by grouping verbs into categories based on the type of thinking they unlock. We'll explore verbs for analyzing and solving problems, verbs for creating and imagining new possibilities, verbs for communicating and collaborating with others, verbs for respecting and acting with ethical integrity, and finally, verbs for learning and growing. This framework will give you a mental filing cabinet. When you need to solve a problem, you'll know exactly which drawer to open, the one full of powerful analytical verbs. Let's open that first drawer, analyzing and solving. This is where we keep the verbs that power critical thinking. These are the words you use when you have a complex problem to break down, a decision to make, or a strategy to plan. Verbs like analyze, assess, compare, and justify. These aren't just fancy words, they're commands that tell the AI to activate its logical reasoning capabilities. When you're facing a tough challenge, you need to reach for these verbs to get a thoughtful, reasoned response. Within the problem-solving category, we have a subgroup focused on deep, critical analysis. Verbs like analyze, assess, synthesize, and evaluate. These are the verbs you use when you need to go beyond the surface. For example, asking the AI to synthesize customer feedback from multiple sources tells it to integrate diverse inputs into a single, coherent summary. Asking it to evaluate a solution tells it to weigh the pros and cons. These verbs force the AI to think critically, not just retrieve information. Let's see how these verbs apply to specific Agile roles. For a product owner, using the verb justify in a prompt, like justify the prioritization of this feature, forces the AI to build a logical case. For a Scrum Master, using facilitate or analyze guides the AI to think about team dynamics and process improvement. For a developer, explore or infer can lead to innovative technical solutions. The key takeaway is that the verb should match the cognitive task you want the AI to perform. Match the verb to the job you need done. Here's a practical example. For a DevOps engineer, a powerful analytical prompt might be evaluate the CI/CD pipeline for bottlenecks, diagnose deployment failures, and assess infrastructure scalability. Look at those verbs: evaluate, diagnose, assess. Each one is a specific instruction. Evaluate directs the AI to make a judgment. Diagnose tells it to find the root cause. Assess asks it to gauge future capacity. Together, they create a comprehensive analysis. The verbs don't just ask for information, they demand insight. Next, let's look at verbs for influence, comparative, and persuasive verbs. These are the words you use when you need to build an argument, convince a stakeholder, or highlight differences. Verbs like compare, persuade, advocate, and negotiate. These verbs push the AI to think in terms of relationships and influence. For instance, asking the AI to compare two product roadmaps is different from asking it to describe them. Compare forces a side-by-side evaluation, which is the foundation of any persuasive argument. For a product manager, using persuade in a prompt, like persuade stakeholders of the need for this feature, tells the AI to generate compelling, stakeholder-friendly language. For a UX designer, using demonstrate or convince guides the AI to present design decisions in a way that builds buy-in. And for a Scrum Master, mediate and motivate are verbs that focus on resolving conflict and inspiring the team. These verbs transform the AI from a simple information source into a communication partner. Here's a great example for an engineering manager. Assess the technical feasibility of proposed projects, justify resource allocations based on projected ROI, and strategize development timelines. The verb justify is particularly powerful. It doesn't just ask for a list of resources, it demands a rationale. It tells the AI to build a logical bridge between the resources needed and the value they will create. This turns a simple report into a persuasive business case. Now we move into more specialized territory, technical and analytical verbs. These are the verbs you use when you're deep in the weeds of implementation. Verbs like diagnose, implement, optimize, and refactor. These words speak to the AI's understanding of technical processes and systems. They're not just about thinking, they're about doing and improving. When you ask a developer, AI to optimize a query, you're not asking for a description of optimization, you're asking for an action plan. An engineering manager might use diagnose to find issues in development processes. A UX designer might use test and refine to improve prototypes. A DevOps engineer lives in verbs like coordinate and optimize. Each of these verbs is a directive that engages the AI's problem-solving mode within a specific technical domain. They are the verbs of execution, moving from abstract concepts to concrete actions and improvements. Look at this prompt for a developer. Develop a prototype based on the latest design specs, assess its feasibility, and adjust based on feedback. Implement changes for the final version. The sequence of verbs tells a story. Develop, assess, adjust, implement. This isn't just a task list, it's a mini workflow. The verbs guide the AI through the entire iterative process of creation, evaluation, and refinement. That's the power of a verb-driven prompt. Next, we have verbs specifically for problem solving and resolution. These are the verbs you use when something has gone wrong and you need to fix it. Words like diagnose, resolve, troubleshoot, and mitigate. These verbs activate the AI's root cause analysis capabilities. They tell the AI to move from identifying a symptom to finding a cure. When a bug is reported or a process fails, these are the verbs you need in your prompt. For a product analyst, investigate and resolve are key. They guide the AI to dig into data discrepancies. For an Agile coach, facilitate and mediate help the AI think about resolving team conflicts. For a release manager, coordinate and monitor are about proactively managing and solving problems before they escalate. Each of these verbs frames the AI's role as a troubleshooter, focused on identifying issues and implementing fixes. Here's a perfect example for a UX researcher. Analyze user feedback to identify usability issues, investigate the root causes of user frustrations, and recommend design changes. The verb investigate is crucial here. It tells the AI to go beyond the surface level feedback and dig for the why. It's the difference between knowing that users are frustrated and understanding why they're frustrated. Investigate is the verb that unlocks deeper insight. Finally, in our analytical toolkit, we have verbs for decision, making, and strategic planning. These are the verbs for looking ahead. Words like strategize, prioritize, decide, and forecast. These verbs engage the AI's ability to think about the future, weigh options, and make choices under uncertainty. When you're planning a roadmap or allocating resources, you need verbs that force the AI to think strategically, not just tactically. A DevOps engineer uses plan and prioritize to manage infrastructure updates. A QA engineer uses strategize and evaluate to decide what to test first. A graphic designer uses decide and strategize to align their visual concepts with marketing goals. Each of these verbs asks the AI to make a judgment call, to choose a path forward. They move the AI from being a passive reporter to an active participant in the planning process. Look at this prompt for a QA engineer. Strategize your testing approach for the upcoming release, evaluate the criticality of identified bugs, and decide on the prioritization for fixes. The verb strategize kicks things off by asking for a high-level plan. Evaluate then asks for a judgment on bug severity. And decide is the culmination. It asks for a concrete choice. This prompt guides the AI through a complete strategic thinking process, from planning to execution. Now, let's shift gears completely and open the second drawer, creating and imagining. This is where we keep the verbs that spark innovation and break us out of conventional thinking. Verbs like envision, innovate, ideate, and prototype. These words tell the AI to turn off its analytical, fact-based mode and turn on its creative, generative mode. When you need fresh ideas, you need creative verbs. Within the creative category, we have creative and generative verbs. These are for when you want to create something new from scratch. Verbs like design, craft, and imagine If you ask the AI to imagine a future product, you're giving it permission to speculate and dream. If you ask it to craft a user journey, you're asking for a carefully constructed narrative. These verbs open up a space of possibility where the usual rules don't always apply. For a product manager, envision and innovate are verbs that push beyond the current roadmap. For a UX designer, a sketch and conceptualize are about giving form to abstract ideas. For a developer, architect and code can be creative acts when paired with an innovative goal. These verbs are the keys to unlocking the AI's ability to generate novel concepts and original solutions, turning it into a true brainstorming partner. Here's how a product owner might use creative verbs: envision the product's future, brainstorm feature ideas, and design user journeys. Envision is a powerful, forward-looking verb that invites speculation. Brainstorm is all about quantity and diversity of ideas, not quality. And design is about structuring those ideas into a coherent experience. Together, these verbs create a prompt that is not about getting the right answer, but about exploring the best possibilities. A closely related group is innovative and ideation verbs. These are for the process of turning sparks of creativity into tangible concepts. Words like brainstorm, conceptualize, and prototype. If imagine is the spark, then conceptualize is the fire. It's about taking a fleeting thought and giving it structure. And prototype is about making it real, even if just in a rough form. These verbs guide the AI through the journey from idea to execution. A Scrum Master might use facilitate and inspire to run an innovation workshop. A product owner uses refine and validate to shape raw ideas into viable features. A developer uses develop and architect to build functional prototypes. Each of these verbs moves the creative process forward, adding layers of definition and practicality to the initial burst of imagination. For a software developer, a powerful ideation prompt is prototype a new feature based on user feedback, iterate based on testing, and refine the user experience. A prototype kicks off the action, turning an idea into something tangible. Iterate acknowledges that the first version won't be perfect, and refine is about continuous improvement. This prompt doesn't just ask for a final product. It asks for a process of innovation, mirroring how real creative work happens. Now let's open the third drawer, communicating and collaborating. These verbs are all about relationships. They're the words you use when you need to share information, work as a team, or build understanding. In Agile, collaboration is everything, and the verbs you choose in your prompts can either encourage or hinder that collaborative spirit. Verbs like explain, clarify, and facilitate are essential for effective teamwork. First, we have explanatory and informative verbs. These are for when you need to convey complex information clearly. Verbs like clarify, illustrate, and describe. If you ask the AI to clarify a technical concept, you're asking for a simplified, accessible explanation. If you ask it to illustrate a user flow, you're asking for a visual or narrative example. These verbs are about bridging the gap between knowledge and understanding. A product manager uses explain and illustrate to make the product vision tangible. A UX designer uses demonstrate and specify to show their design intent. A Scrum Master uses summarize and interpret to turn sprint data into actionable insights. Each of these verbs is about making the complex simple and the abstract concrete. They're the verbs of effective teaching and clear communication. For a Scrum Master, a great explanatory prompt is summarize sprint outcomes, interpret feedback, and inform next steps. Summarize asks for a concise, high-level view. Interpret asks for meaning to be extracted from raw data. And inform asks for that meaning to be shared in a way that guides future action. This isn't just reporting, it's translating data into a clear story that the whole team can understand and act upon. Next are social and interpersonal verbs. These are about building connections and navigating the human dynamics of a team. Verbs like collaborate, empathize, and connect. These words might seem soft, but they're incredibly powerful. When you ask an AI to help you empathize with users, you're asking it to consider emotional needs, not just functional ones. These verbs bring a human-centered focus to your prompts. An engineering manager uses mentor and encourage to support their team's growth. A QA engineer uses connect and share to build strong working relationships. A UX designer uses empathize and listen to truly understand user needs. These verbs remind us that AI can be a tool for enhancing human connection, not just for processing data. They guide the AI to think about the people behind the tasks. For a software developer, a prompt using interpersonal verbs might be coordinate development efforts, discuss technical challenges, and support peers. Coordinate is about alignment. Discuss is about open dialogue. And support is about offering help. This prompt doesn't just ask for technical output, it asks for a collaborative process. It guides the AI to generate responses that build team cohesion, not just complete tasks. Morale and human experience. Verbs like perceive, resonate, and console. These words tell the AI to pay attention to the emotional subtext. When a team is stressed or users are frustrated, these verbs can help you craft prompts that lead to more compassionate and insightful responses. A Scrum Master might use console and reassure to support a team through a difficult sprint. A product owner might use acknowledge and sense to better understand team morale. A UX designer uses observe and interpret to decode the emotional content of user feedback. These verbs bring a crucial layer of humanity to our AI interactions, ensuring we don't lose sight of the people we're building for and with. For an engineering manager, a prompt with emotional intelligence might be acknowledge individual contributions, resolve tensions, and cultivate empathy. Acknowledge is about validation and appreciation. Resolve is about actively addressing conflict. And cultivate is about nurturing a positive team culture over time. This prompt guides the AI to think about leadership as an act of care, not just as a series of management tasks. Now let's look at directive and instructional verbs. These are for when you need to provide clear guidance, set expectations, or teach someone how to do something. Verbs like instruct, guide, and delegate. These words establish a clear leader, follower, teacher-student dynamic. They're essential for prompts where you need the AI to act as a coach or a mentor, providing clear, actionable steps. A QA engineer uses instruct and train to teach best practices. An engineering manager uses delegate and supervise to assign and oversee work. A Scrum Master uses coordinate and schedule to keep the team organized. These verbs are about providing structure and clarity. They tell the AI to be authoritative and precise, which is exactly what you need when you're teaching a new process or assigning a complex task. For a product manager, a directive prompt could be direct feature prioritization, instruct on market needs, and guide user story creation. Direct is a strong verb that sets a clear hierarchy. Instruct implies a transfer of knowledge. Guide is a softer but still directional verb, suggesting a supportive leadership role. Together, they create a prompt where the AI is expected to take charge and lead the product development conversation. Finally, in the communication category, we have collaborative and team-oriented verbs. These are the opposite of directive verbs. They emphasize shared effort and mutual goals. Verbs like unite, co-create, and brainstorm. These words tell the AI to think in terms of oh, not I or you. They're perfect for prompts where you want to generate ideas or solutions that have buy-in from the entire team. A developer uses collaborate and share to work effectively with peers. A UX designer uses co-create and synthesize to build designs with input from others. A product owner uses unify and strategize to bring the team together around a common vision. These verbs are the language of teamwork. They guide the AI to produce outputs that are inclusive, consider multiple perspectives, and build consensus. For a Scrum Master, a collaborative prompt is unite the team around goals, share sprint feedback, and co-create process improvements. Unite is a powerful verb that focuses on common purpose. Share implies transparency and open communication. And co-create is the ultimate collaborative verb. It means to create something together. This prompt doesn't just ask for a list of improvements, it asks for a team-led process of improvement. Our next major category is respecting and acting. This is about ethics, integrity, and cultural awareness. These verbs are crucial for ensuring that our AI interactions and the products we build are fair, inclusive, and responsible. Verbs like respect, acknowledge, and advocate. These words force us and the AI to consider the wider impact of our work, moving beyond technical or business goals to include human and societal values. Specifically, we have verbs for cultural and ethical awareness. These are for when you need to consider diversity, avoid bias, and uphold ethical standards. Verbs like respect, adhere, and champion. If you ask the AI to respect diverse cultural perspectives, you're telling it to actively consider inclusion in its response. If you ask it to adhere to ethical guidelines, you're setting a boundary that its response must not cross. A product owner uses respect and advocate to build inclusive products. A UX designer uses embrace and evaluate to ensure designs are culturally sensitive. A developer uses implement and adapt to code with ethical considerations in mind. These verbs build responsibility directly into the prompt. They're not an afterthought, they're a core instruction, guiding the AI to be a force for good. For a software developer, an ethically aware prompt is implement inclusive features, adhere to privacy standards, and reflect on user feedback. Implement inclusive features is a direct instruction to consider a diverse user base. Adhere to privacy standards sets a non-negotiable boundary. And reflect on user feedback encourages a continuous loop of learning and improvement based on the real-world impact of their work. This prompt builds ethics into the very fabric of the development task. Our final category is learning and growing. These verbs are all about continuous improvement, self-awareness, and skill development. In the fast, moving world of tech, learning isn't optional, it's essential. And these verbs help you turn the AI into a personal coach or a learning partner. Verbs like learn, reflect, and evolve guide the AI to help you become better at your craft. First, we have learning and development verbs. These are for when you want to acquire new knowledge or skills. Verbs like learn, grow, and expand. If you ask the AI to help you expand your understanding of a topic, you're asking for a broad educational overview. If you ask it to help you develop a skill, you're asking for a more structured. An engineering manager uses mentor and train to develop their team. A product manager uses expand and experiment to deepen their market knowledge. A QA engineer uses learn and apply to stay current with testing methodologies. Each of these verbs frames the AI as a resource for growth, helping you and your team build new capabilities and stay ahead of the curve. For a product owner, a learning, focus prompt is expand market understanding, apply user insights, and evolve product strategy. Expand is about actively seeking new knowledge. Apply is about putting that knowledge to work. And evolve is about allowing that new knowledge to change your approach. This prompt creates a virtuous cycle of learning, doing, and adapting, the essence of both agile and personal growth. Finally, we have reflective and introspective verbs. These are the quietest verbs, but they're incredibly powerful. Words like reflect, contemplate, and introspect. These verbs ask the AI, and by extension, you to slow down, look inward, and consider the deeper lessons from your experiences. In a world of constant action, these verbs create space for wisdom. A Scrum Master uses reflect and introspect to learn from past sprints. A product owner uses ponder and deliberate to make more thoughtful strategic decisions. A developer uses question and recess to continuously improve their craft. These verbs are about learning from the past to build a better future. They're the verbs of mastery, not just competence. For a UX designer, a reflective prompt might be introspect on design choices, analyze user feedback, and refine design philosophy. Introspect asks for a deep personal examination of past work. Analyze is about learning from external input, and refine is about using those insights to evolve your core approach. This isn't about fixing a single design, it's about becoming a better designer. That's the power of reflective verbs. So, as we conclude, remember these verbs are not just words. They are the heartbeat of communication, the architects of our ideas, and the catalysts for change. Every prompt you write is an opportunity to choose a verb with intention. Do you want to analyze or imagine? Do you want to instruct or collaborate? Do you want to report or reflect? The verb you choose sets the entire trajectory of the conversation. Choose wisely and watch your prompts transform.